What's going on, guys? Welcome to the BK Sports Show for April 4th, 2024. We are going to change that name, by the way. It was just a temporary name. We got to change that. I thought it sounded okay at first, and then, I started saying it more, and I'm like, all right, yeah, we got to make
a Burger King Sports Show. What are you talking about? I think it's great.
Hey, look, man. If people want us to keep the name, I'll keep the name. I got no problem with that.
No, they don't want us to keep the name. They don't want us to.
Maybe when we cross 50 subscribers, we'll change the name.
I know the subscribers moving up, when we actually do shows. And, of course, you're going AWOL and not showing up to things. And it's fine, man. It's okay. We'll get better about it.
Yeah. We'll get more consistent. There's no doubt about it.
We're going to get more consistent. It's okay. We're not going to hopefully miss anything for the rest of the month, but life is crazy. Final Four is in Arizona. Life is hard.
Yeah, absolutely. We got some fun things planned in the coming months here. So, when we're ready to talk about it, we'll let you guys know. So we got some really big things to talk about. Obviously, Stefon Diggs got traded. We got Joel Embiid returning to the court. We had the women's basketball over the weekend that we absolutely have to talk about. And then we also have Hassan Reddick being traded to the New York Jets. So,
wait, Hassan Reddick got traded? That's not possible. Eagles fans told me he was going to stay. Oh, wait. I guess they don't actually know everything. Sorry, we'll get to that later. But I was told Hassan Reddick wasn't going anywhere. I actually do know Capology. Oh, you can't just keep it. Oh, okay. My mistake. Eagles fans. My mistake. See, I told you I hate on everyone equally. I'll mess on the Cowboys. Anyone can get it. Yeah. Eagles fans are starting to become the new Cowboys fans for me this year. Let's see how that goes. So I might have to put on my Dak Prescott jersey. Sorry. Do what you got to do.
We'll talk about that later. I think you'd be surprised, but I think Eagles fans are more delusional than Cowboys fans, if you ask me. But that's a topic for another day. So, all right. Let's start out in Houston here. Stefon Diggs gets traded from the Buffalo Bills to the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans ended up trading a second-round pick, and in return, they got Stefon Diggs, a fifth-round and a sixth-round pick. So immediately, right off the bat, what are your thoughts of this trade? Who comes out the winner of this trade?
Well, I think the team that always comes out the winner in a trade, very plainly, is the team that gets the better player. We don't know what a 2025 second-round pick can be. We say this every year. The draft is a crapshoot. But in the same breath, I'm going to say this. The Texans came out clear winners. They get Stefon Diggs. They get to load up that offense. But also, I know they attached a couple of late-round picks to Stefon Diggs. I'm really surprised they got a second-round pick back for Stefon Diggs, a guy that's on the wrong side of 30. He's not owed as much money as the Bills have already paid him. They paid a ton of the money left on that deal and then basically just gave the Texans to him for free, which was very interesting. But a guy who was kind of a locker room cancer at times, caused a lot of issues there. Josh Allen and him sometimes didn't get along. I am surprised that they were able to leverage him for a second-round pick. But in the same breath, I'm going to say, the team that got the better player won, and I still think Stefon Diggs is a top 15 receiver in the NFL. I'd probably lean he's closer to 15 than 10, but he's still a wide receiver one in this league, a low-end wide receiver one, but a wide receiver one nonetheless. So Texans came out on top, but I'm surprised that the Bills got as much as they did for Stefon Diggs. Am I wrong there?
No, I don't think you're wrong at all. Look, here's the thing. Stefon Diggs is still a really good receiver. I just have questions as to why the Buffalo Bills traded him. And I don't think that they really got much in return for his services, in my personal opinion.
Wow.
And I just have questions. I'm not ready to jump on the Texans bandwagon here. I do think that there's locker room concerns with Stefon Diggs. I don't think that this is just a guy that's going to come in right away and automatically change the culture in Houston. I have some questions there. I have some questions on how he's going to be used in Houston. I'm not as big of a fan of Bobby Slowick as a lot of other people are. I think that CJ Stroud did a lot for that offense that really helped out Bobby Slowick. Obviously, a quarterback's going to help out an offense, but CJ Stroud won a lot of times because he was making plays when the play broke down. I don't think they run enough West Coast concepts where you're getting the ball out of your hands and getting the quarterback in a rhythm, which is why Stroud's completion percentage was below 65%. So I want to see how he's deployed in this offense. And look, you're adding big personalities to what was a young team last year. And, this is where they're going to start building their culture. They're building their culture around guys like Will Anderson and CJ Stroud. I just worry that you add a guy like Stefon Diggs, who did what he did in Buffalo, who visibly showed that he was upset multiple times throughout his time in Buffalo. And you have a guy like Joe Mixon in there as well, even though I know Joe Mixon was great in Cincinnati. I just have some questions on whether or not this is the move that people think it's going to be for this team. Because if it is that type of move and Stefon Diggs is that type of receiver for them, I think he would have gone for more than what he went for.
Wow. Here's why I love the move for the Houston Texans. You have a quarterback on a rookie deal, and what we just see with Brock Purdy, and I think CJ Stroud is miles the quarterback that Brock Purdy is. Load up that offense for 5 years. And now you have an offense with a very capable tight end in Dalton Schultz. You have a running back who is not over the hill, but maybe his best days are behind him, but still a very productive running back in Joe Mixon, a wide receiver 1 in Stefon Diggs, a 6-foot guy who can still be vertical at times, Tank Dell, and Nico Collins, who was arguably the most underrated wide receiver this year. Laramie Tunsil's on the offensive line. I don't think Bobby Slowick is an offensive mastermind like Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan, but I think he's a pretty good offensive coordinator, and I really love the culture of the Houston Texans. Everything the Texans are doing this offseason is perfect. They took a huge step forward last year with the team going to the playoffs. They were better than they thought, and they went and spent loads and bags of money on fixing this team, even on guys that who knows if they're going to work out, but it doesn't matter because you're not paying the quarterback anything. Teams that are going to win Super Bowls and your name is not Patrick Mahomes, this is the way it's done. Patrick Mahomes won 2 Super Bowls on his quote-unquote rookie deal. CJ Stroud could win a Super Bowl on his rookie deal when it is completely loaded for him. So I love the deal. I love what they did in getting Stefon Diggs. And ultimately, I just think loading up the offense is what's going to make the Texans one of the best teams in the AFC next year. I'm kind of surprised you're not on that bandwagon too.
So here's the thing, right? Obviously, they got better with this trade. I'm not saying they didn't. I'm just saying that I have questions as to why Buffalo got rid of Stefon Diggs and didn't get more, or the fact that they even traded a 5th and a 6th round pick to me is a little bit of a question mark, to where it's just like, all right, Stefon Diggs for a 2nd round pick. All right, that's fine compensation. We'll just go our separate ways. But now the Bills don't have anybody for Josh Allen to throw the football to. And it just really raises questions for me, is what I'm trying to say. The Texans definitely got better, no doubt about it. I like some of the other moves that they made as well. I like them going and getting Danielle Hunter and Joe Mixon and Azeez Al-Shaair. I like these moves, but at the same time, I'm not ready to say that they're even a top 3 team in the AFC right now. I don't think they're not better than Kansas City. I don't think they're better than Baltimore, and I don't think, hear me out, I don't think they're better than the New York Jets. So to me, like, they were the 4th seed last year. Do I see them being higher than the 4th seed? I don't know. I just don't know. So is it a good move by the Houston Texans to add Stefon Diggs? Yes. Does it tip the scales for me to where I say, all right, they can really compete with the Kansas City Chiefs? Not this year. And that's fine, right? CJ Stroud is still a young quarterback. They still have a few more years to where they can get it done under his rookie contract. I just don't think it's this upcoming year is kind of what I'm trying to get at here.
And here's what I'll say about the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills getting rid of Stefon Diggs, and they got rid of Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde and numerous Tre'Davious White isn't there. Just numerous amounts of players that were on that team. And people are looking at this like, why getting rid of Stefon Diggs? Why getting rid of Tre'Davious White? Well, Tre'Davious White tore his Achilles. He's on the wrong side of 30. Jordan Poyer's on the wrong side of 30. Stefon Diggs was a headache and it was owed a lot of money, and a guy that for 13, 12 weeks was kind of marginal. And also, this Buffalo Bills team kind of peaked. They kind of peaked. And their biggest moment was losing the AFC Championship game to the Kansas City Chiefs. At some point, you just have to move on. And what they're going to do is they're going to take their licks for a year. They're going to reset their salary cap. They're going to have to fix weapons around Josh Allen. And they're just going to have to try to swing for the fences this year. And likely this will be Sean McDermott's last year. Get a new head coach and completely reset this team. Josh Allen is still young. He'll have more than just next year to compete. And sometimes teams have to take a transition year. And that's what I think it's going to be for the Buffalo Bills this year.
Yeah, just one last thing when it comes to that. Like when it comes to the Bills and the AFC East, to me, I talked about it. I think, and we're going to talk about this team later on. I think that the Jets are the best team in that division. I think that the Bills are going to make the playoffs, though, because I believe in Josh Allen and his talents, and I do believe in the talent that they have on this roster. So I think they'll be good enough to make the playoffs. But, it does look like you're right. It's going to be a transition year for the Buffalo Bills, and that's fine. Josh Allen's still young. You still have plenty of years ahead of him. And, look, at the end of the day, I'm not expecting too much from the Bills next season. And, them trading Stefon Diggs, to me, pretty much puts a bow on my opinion that this isn't really a year that Buffalo is looking to make a bunch of moves and go win a Super Bowl. I think that they do look at this as a transition year. You're absolutely right when you say that. So that's where we'll leave off with that. So on Tuesday night, 76ers center Joel Embiid returned to action. He's been out for the past, I believe it's 3 months now with an injury. Yeah. So it's been a while here for Joel Embiid. He returned back to action, had 24 points versus the Oklahoma City Thunder as the Sixers picked up a win there. So my question to you is this: what are your expectations for the 76ers now that Joel Embiid is back, and how far can they go?
Oh, it's my time to give my yearly Joel Embiid is not a superstar take. All right, well, let's have at it. Let's do it right now. The 76ers with Joel Embiid, they're a semifinal team in the East like they normally are, so they'll be in the second round and they'll likely get eliminated because Joel Embiid's game does not translate to the postseason. Similar to James Harden's did not transfer to the postseason. And I know people point to MVPs and say, Joel Embiid is a superstar. He can lead a team to the promised land. I would love to see Joel Embiid make a conference championship game before we crown him as one of the best players in the NBA, because we see the guy consistently turtle shell in the playoffs. This is not new. Every year his statistics go down heavily so to the point where he's a completely different player in the playoffs. He's not a bad player. He's still a top 15 player in the NBA, but he's not one of the top 6, top 8 guys that can carry you to a championship, whether it's injuries or whether it's revisionist history that we've seen over the past couple of years. He's not able to carry a team. And I like the 76ers roster a lot. In fact, this is probably the deepest roster they've had in years. And maybe that goes a long way to take them to the conference championship game. But they're probably going to have the second best player in a semifinal match. If they match up against the Bucks, Joel Embiid will be the second best player in that series. And if they match up against the Celtics, he'll likely be the second best player in that series to Jason Tatum, another guy who I'm highly critical of. So until I can see Joel Embiid do it, it's a little bit like the Dak Prescott thing. That's cool. That's awesome. Dak Prescott, that's cool, Joel Embiid. Show me. Just go ahead and do it. Don't tell me how great you are. Don't campaign for an MVP. I want to see Joel Embiid win multiple playoff series in the same year before I call this guy a superstar. I know you're a Sixer fan. I know I'm a little harsh on Joel Embiid, but It just feels like it's the same thing every year.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, you can't ignore patterns, especially when, a few years ago, the Sixers were the number one seed in the conference. They had a path to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they lose to the Atlanta Hawks. And then the Bucks played the Hawks the next round and showed you how you're supposed to beat a team of that caliber. The Bucks played the Brooklyn Nets, who are a much better team, and beat that team, right? And then they went on and played the Hawks, smoked them, got to the finals, and ended up winning the finals. I think they blew the Sixers have blown opportunity to me to win a championship with Joel Embiid because they didn't make that transition in 2019 to go win a championship. And they didn't make it in 2021 when it was right there in front of them for them to take it. They didn't take it. And I mean, look, again, I'll say this, you cannot ignore patterns when it comes to sports. And the pattern is the Sixers cannot get past the second round. So for me, until I see you get past the second round, me personally, I cannot say that I look at you as a title contender. Now, two things. One thing I will say is I did not love the coaching staff that Joel Embiid played under prior to this season. I think that Nick Nurse is the best coach that he's had. I'm not a Doc Rivers fan whatsoever. I liked Brett Brown and what he did for that team, turning some things around within a rebuild. But overall, he wasn't the coach that was going to get them over the hump. Is Nick Nurse that guy? Look, Joel Embiid played incredible basketball at the beginning of the season. I mean, he had one of the best stretches that we've seen from a basketball player in a very long time, averaging, I believe it was 36 points per game. It's just some really special stuff. So the reason why I think it could be different for them this year is because of Nick Nurse. Again, I have to see them get past that semifinal round before I can predict them doing that. But I do feel optimistic from that standpoint when it comes to that team. And then two, I'll say this, when it comes to the Eastern Conference, I don't think the Bucks can beat the Celtics. And I don't think the Sixers can beat the Celtics either. I don't think any of these teams in the East can beat the Celtics. But I think the Sixers provide a level of curiosity around them when it comes to that matchup, right? Because of how good we saw Joel Embiid play this year, you have to ask yourself, like, if he can get into the thick of things here, and Tyrese Maxey comes back, they have Buddy Hield that they acquired over the trade deadline, they have some other pieces. It makes you wonder, like, I would like to see a series between those two because again, there is that curiosity that I have that I don't have with the Bucks because I think the Celtics would just dispose of the Bucks immediately.
That's a really good point that you made before, and I'm going to steal that from you. You can't ignore patterns, especially with guys who I've been highly critical of, whether it's Dak Prescott or Jason Tatum, or in this point, Joel Embiid. Every single year we've seen it. He goes to the playoffs, his stats decline mightily. He doesn't make it past the second round. He lobbies for an MVP trophy that he shouldn't have won last year. It should have went to Nikola Jokic. He turtle shells in big games. And so for me, until we see Joel Embiid put a team on his back, stay fully healthy for an entire playoff run, then we just can't trust the guy. And I'm not going to trust the guy. And until it's just one of those things where it's like, that's cool, Joel Embiid. Show me you can do it. Because you can't ignore things that have continuously happened. So people can't tell me this guy's a superstar when each and every year with good teams, and now his best head coach that he's ever had in Nick Nurse, that he can't take them to minimal the conference championship. You're not a superstar if you can't do that. Even Luka Doncic did that with lawn deck chairs against the Phoenix Suns a couple years ago. But that's all I'll say on Joel Embiid.
Yeah, and just to put a bow on it, it's fair. And I love Joel Embiid. I think he's a fantastic player. But that series against the Hawks a few years ago, I still have questions about that because what was your excuse? You had the better team. And it wasn't really close when you look at both of those rosters. And the fact that you didn't win that series, I'm still like pissed off about the result of that series. I am. That just it really drives me up a wall when it comes to Joel Embiid. And if you don't want to say he's a superstar, I'm not going to contest you on that because again, he's been in position to get his team over the hump, and he hasn't been able to do it. So all is love in or what is it? All is fair and love and more. I think that's
that is it. That is it.
Okay, yeah. I'm not necessarily great with the quotes and all those type of things. So I had to throw that out there to try and make myself sound sophisticated. So
and ironically made yourself sound worse. Next topic.
Yeah. Absolutely. So man, it was a very fun weekend for women's basketball on the college ranks. Obviously, you had LSU and Iowa. That was a fantastic game the other night. You had USC and UConn was a game that a lot of people were paying attention to. So with this past weekend, do you think that women's basketball is heading in the right direction?
Oh, of course. And honestly, it was one of those things where like I kind of wish Caitlin Clark would stay in college because it seems like the brand of women's college basketball is just better than the WNBA right now. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to watch Caitlin Clark's first game with the Indiana Fever. Maybe I will the first one, but I don't know if I will after that. It just feels like the brand of women's college basketball is just better. Here's what I will say about the LSU Iowa game, and I said this on an Outbreak on my Instagram on Ben Garcia's show. You can find it there. I basically said, man, Caitlin Clark is really good. Man, Angel Reese is good. Man, Paige Buchers is really good. Everyone else is still catching up. Like the discrepancy between those guys, between Angel Reese and Paige Buchers and the girl from South Carolina and Caitlin Clark and
Juju Watkins as well.
Yeah, Juju Watkins. The discrepancy between those like 5 elite players and the best 6-man in women's college basketball is like the Grand Canyon. Like it's huge. Like those guys are really good, but they have a lot of catching up to do in terms of everyone else trying to catch those superstars. It was a ton of fun, and they're heading in the right direction, but it does feel like we're still a little bit away from it really rocking, the men's ratings. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean by that. I don't mean to sound, people can make it twisted, make it seem like I think it's just awful, but it's just what it is, just the honest truth. Like there were so many times in that game where I was like, I could see why people don't love this product outside of those few 5 players, which are super fun to watch.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that women's basketball right now is heavily reliant on the biggest stars in their sport, which is fine. That's not something that's abnormal whatsoever. And I hate to make this comparison because they're on 2 different sides of the spectrum. But like when you look at the NFL, you can have a year where they lose the greatest player that's ever played the game. A lot of their star players get injured at the quarterback position, and the ratings are still higher than they've ever been. In women's basketball, it is heavily reliant on those women like Caitlin Clark and Paige Buchers and Juju Watkins and Angel Reese, which is fine. But I would say this, they're heading in the right direction. I had a ton of fun watching that game the other night with Iowa and LSU. And the fact that they pulled, I think, over 12 million viewers, it's awesome for the sport. I love the energy around the sport right now. I love how the game is covered by, the women on ESPN that were doing the coverage on the during the game. I think that they cover the sport with such great passion, which is something that I think the sport needs because you need people excited about the game that are covering the game. Obviously that's pretty much the case for every sport. But, when you talk about the fact that there were people that said, I was waiting all day for LSU and Iowa, that just shows you that the sport is heading in the right direction. Has it arrived? Is it something that I say like, hey, I got to tune into the 10th ranked team in the country playing the 22nd ranked team in the country? No, it's not, but it's heading in the right direction. And a sport that has really taken off over the past 10 years is, MMA, the UFC. Now, a lot of people are starting to tune into the UFC, and they don't even have that many stars in the sport anymore. But, the ratings are still getting higher. The pay-per-view sales are consistently getting higher year over year. So to me, that's where I kind of compare women's college basketball to. It's in that 2014, 2015 stage of the UFC, in my personal opinion.
That's a very interesting perspective to put on that. Here's the one thing I'll say about that game. If we're going to hold, and we should, if we're going to say women want to be paid like the NBA players and they want to be paid attention to like the NBA players, there's nothing wrong with that. I love that. But there's some things that come with that ground. So when I see Angel Reese doing the "You Can't See Me" and the finger pointing, the ring finger pointing, and when I see her getting up in players' faces, and when I see her casually poking fun at other players, and she wants to be the bad guy, and that's great. I love a good villain. I love the Joker. I love Bane. I love the Green Goblin. I love a good villain. Villains make seasons, make shows, make movies, make cinema that much more better. With that being said, when Caitlin Clark, who's easily playing the superhero in this role, when Caitlin Clark comes back the next year and beats you, you don't get to turtle shell and make everyone try to feel bad for you, because we don't. Criticism comes with the ground that you want, and that's okay. That's it. That's okay. Heaviest is the head that wears the crown, Angel Reese. And so when I see her want to bring up things to make people feel bad for her or say she's never been happy since she won the national championship, I find it interesting, the timeliness of when she said those things. And I hold everyone to the same standard. Dylan Brooks last year, trying to poke the bear in LeBron James, trying to be the big bad wolf, and then LeBron James blows his house down, and then he wants to turtle shell and not talk to the media. That's lame. LeBron James getting booted from the playoffs and then immediately changing the narrative. And I don't know, I could retire, I'm not sure, completely flipping the narrative on his head. Angel Reese can't do that either. If you want to be, like Emmanuel Acho said, the big bad wolf, you don't get to act like the three little pigs when your house gets blown down. I'm not going to go for it. I'm not going to fall for it. And if you want to be the big bad bully, then be the big bad bully all the time. Don't try to twist it into something it's not, because I'm not falling for it. If you want to be one of the best players, you're going to be criticized like the best players. And that's how we do it with the men, and that's how we should do it with the women too, because sports all around doesn't see any gender.
Absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. I agree with a lot of what you said, but to kind of be on the other side here, one thing I will say is that Angel Reese is going to go down as one of the most important women in women's basketball history, due to the fact that with the "You Can't See Me" and all the trash talk that she did to Caitlin Clark in that game in 2023, that set the stage for women's, for that game in particular to be as big as it was. So while I'm not on board with her playing the victim in a way, I do have to sit there also and give her flowers, because without her and without her doing the things that she did in that game in 2023, I don't know if the stage would have been as big for a rematch, in my personal opinion.
No, she's an amazing villain. I love it. I love everything Angel Reese does. I love when Dylan Brooks does it. I love when LeBron James does it. I love villains. So I love Angel Reese. But we're going to criticize you when you fail. That's just what we do in sports. Anyways, let's make fun of Eagles fans.
Absolutely. Yeah, we could talk about that. So let's move on to the next topic here. The Eagles trade star pass rusher Hassan Reddick to the New York Jets. In return, they get a 2026 conditional third-round pick. It can end up being a second-round pick. I believe the number is 10 sacks and 67.5% of the snaps. It would to a second-round pick. I'm sorry, I just got 2 text messages there. So turn off my notifications. I wonder who they're from, by the way. So yeah, what do you think about the Eagles trading Hassan Reddick to the Jets?
Well, I'm just baffled because Eagles fans were telling me for so long that Hassan Reddick wasn't going anywhere and the cap doesn't really matter and we're going to keep Hassan Reddick and all these. Oh, I guess it turns out you don't actually get to keep everyone. And that's a massive blow to the Philadelphia Eagles. Hassan Reddick is a very good player. And they just want to, pay guys like Saquon Barkley, but not keep players like Hassan Reddick. It's a very, very strange offseason. And your rhetoric of Howie Roseman being kind of an overrated GM is starting to stick with me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And here's the thing, right? When you look at the 2 off seasons of the Giants and the Eagles, the Eagles got rid of a star pass rusher and brought in a, what some people would say a star running back, to where like the Giants brought in a star pass rusher and got, a good running back in Devin Singletary. So, that's another topic for another day. To me, the Jets come out winners in this trade because they fulfill their immediate needs, and they're looking to win a Super Bowl in the very short future here. It's got to be within the next 2 years. They have no more than 2 years. And if that's the window for this team, then adding Hassan Reddick is a very good idea. That pass rush is going to be incredible next year for the New York Jets. You have one of the best interior pass rushers in football in Quinnen Williams, and you have one of the best pass rushers from the edge in Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick is a tier 2 pass rusher. He's not on the level of a Bosa, Garrett, Parsons type of edge rusher, but he's in that second tier with a guy like Brian Burns. And the fact that the Eagles got rid of him on top of, they lost Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox, I just don't see how this team's better. The Eagles were one of the worst teams in football to end the season. In the last 7 weeks they were the worst team in football. Some of their losses that they had were against really bad teams, backup quarterbacks. And when they played good teams, not even great, good teams, the Cowboys, the Buccaneers, and the San Francisco 49ers, they didn't belong on the same field as these guys. So my question is, are the Eagles better than what they were last year? No, I don't think they're going to have a better record because they had that fluke 10-1 start where they should have lost about 4 extra games that past season. And I don't think they got that much better. And to talk about the Eagles here, I want people to stop with the damn excuses for this football team. Okay? If the Dallas Cowboys went 1-6 in the last 7 weeks of the season, people would still be talking about that to this day. They'd be talking about that every day to this day, and they'd be talking about how Dak Prescott is overrated and all these bad things about that quarterback. But when the Eagles and Jalen Hurts do it, nobody really talks about it. Nobody really talks about the fact that they had one of the most talented offenses in football, and yet they couldn't score more than 20 points against the Seattle Seahawks defense. That was terrible. Playing against a quarterback like Drew Lock, and I understand he doesn't play defense, but part of offense is, hey, I don't have as much pressure on me because we're going up against a backup quarterback. So to me, this team, they made a lot of changes, and I don't think it's for the better. And I think them losing Hassan Reddick will be big for them. Hassan Reddick is a really damn good player. I said that even when he was in Philadelphia. And now that he's not on that team, it is not a small blow like Eagles fans are trying to make it sound like. This is a big blow to their football team, and I don't think they're going to be a better football team because of it.
Yeah, here's the final thing I'll say, because I know we both got to get out of here in a second. First, I'm very surprised the Cardinals didn't go after Hassan Reddick. I thought there'd be a reunion there with Jonathan Gannon. That was really strange to me. Really surprised the Falcons didn't go after him with some edge, and they need some edge help, and they have salary cap space. That was interesting to me. The New York Jets have had the best offseason in the NFL. And if this isn't the Jets' year to win a title, they're not going to win one. And they're not putting it all on Aaron Rodgers' shoulder. People forget this team was pretty competitive, even with Zach Wilson at quarterback. The defense is stout. I like what they're doing on the offensive side of the ball, too. I would like to see them draft a wide receiver, but I love what the New York Jets have done so far in their offseason, but that's curtains for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And they still have a high pick in the draft. That could be an impact player for them.
Would love to see them use that on a wide receiver, but yeah.
Absolutely. And one last thing that finish this off. Hey, Eagles fans, was Jonathan Gannon that bad? Because I don't know. I thought he did a pretty good job for that defense.
Man.
I guess
I love Jonathan Gannon.
I guess every coach that goes to that team just sucks all of a sudden. But then when they leave, they end up being one of the best coaches in football, and Shane Steichen, and one of the best young coaches in football, and Jonathan Gannon. I don't know.
God,
but
I love Jonathan Gannon. We love him here in Arizona.
I'm a fan of his as well. Absolutely. So that's going to be it for the show. We appreciate you guys for coming out and listening to the podcast. You could be listening to anything else, but you listen to us too, and we appreciate that. And we will see you guys in the next episode. Benjamin, do you have anything to say before we leave?
Yeah, work on your quotes and being able to attribute people correctly.
Anyways,
man, it's good talking to you, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. Always. All right, guys. See ya.